Good afternoon. Today we are going to review sponsorships. We're going to look at how to attract sponsorships, how to invest wisely in sponsorships, how to activate them properly and effectively, and then how to measure that effectiveness, especially when we compare it to other types of marketing mix and promotional mix elements. So the first thing that we look at is this idea of what is a sponsorship. A sponsorship is a business relationship between the provider of funds, resources, or services and an individual, event, or organization which offers in return some rights and association that can be used for commercial advantage. In other words, it is a relationship between a sponsor who is giving either money or value in kind in exchange for a property's access to some sort of benefits, whether that is intellectual property benefits or its direct access to the consumers attending that event. The benefits for the sponsor, we're going to look at either a marketing objective, return on investment, maybe increase awareness, or immediate sales. Some sponsorships that we'll look at are looking specifically to increase immediate sales. Benefit for the property, obviously money to lower their expenses, or value in kind, some sort of product, especially if it's budget relieving. Budget relieving we'll look at in a second is if we have an expense line item for that product and we get it donated, then we don't have to go out and pay for it. In other words, if we are running an event and we need a computer system and computers, and we find a sponsor who will donate that to us, then that value in kind is budget relieving because we don't have to go out and lease that type of equipment. An effective sponsorship is a tool in that mix. It's another one of these ingredients that needs to get activated by one of the other elements, whether it's advertising or if it's promotional selling or we're tying into these different areas to really activate it properly. When we want to focus on sponsorships and what can sponsorship give us that other types of marketing mix or promotional mix can't, is this idea of a customer experience. We can include that consumer in our brand. We can show them and integrate them and engage them in an experience that defines our brand personality. We can't do that in advertising where we just show people something. So we need to really drive down on this idea of an experience economy that people can use our equipment. We had a sponsorship activation for Lowe's at their NASCAR event where we'd bring this huge 100 by 100 foot print supported by an 18-wheel trailer, and we'd have lots of Lowe's specific, race specific as well, ingredients into it. Not the least of which we had this half wall that we would time people. They'd jump over and they would, a group of 4 or 5 people would change a tire, and use the lug nuts and the tire, which was, incredible. We'd have time people so that the winning group would get some sort of premium. But we were able to include Cobalt equipment that is sold at Lowe's. So we had people actually using tools that we are selling at retail as they're doing this event. It was an incredible combination. Here's a couple years old, 2012, 2013 ranking of money people are spending. Companies spending over $50 million on sport sponsorships. There's an incredible amount of money, especially when you look at FIFA World Cup and Summer Olympics and other types of mega events really driving this huge money. You can look at sponsorships events or teams or players. We're seeing a lot of investment. A lot of investment also means that we also need a lot of people activating this and working these events and a lot of employment opportunities that are out there. We're looking at a huge global market of sponsorships The United States still about 50% of the global total, 85% total being a part of sport on all sponsorships. So we're seeing this growing worldwide as well. If you have a specific interest in international sport, if you speak another language, if you have come from or been exposed to another culture, this is a way to differentiate yourself. This is a huge area of people looking to increase what they're doing. Different types of revenue from a property perspective, cash, of course, and then the value in kind. Went over budget relieving, donations for things that you'd normally purchase. Budget enhancing are donations that may cost you some money. They're good to have, but I don't need to have them. I'd prefer to have cash. For example, at the Olympics in Salt Lake City, McDonald's, an Olympic sponsor, gave a lot of food for their sponsorship or including in their sponsorship. This was very helpful for the Olympics because now they are able to give food to volunteers and other workers and keep them motivated and happy. So the volunteers being happy, they were able to do more, they were able to work longer and be engaged better. It's something that you wouldn't normally do from a property perspective as you're looking at cutting costs. So this was something very nice to be able to provide to the volunteers. Budweiser also gave a lot of beer as a part of their sponsorship. Unfortunately, in Salt Lake City, because of the very strict alcohol laws, a lot of that beer wasn't able to be used in sponsorship, hospitality, and other types of things. So they'd have to figure out ways to dispose of this donation. So it didn't actually help them. In fact, disposing of the beer actually may have cost them some money and some time. So budget enhancing, you really want to think through this idea of what we're getting and how we're going to use it. From a sponsor perspective, I would love to give a value in kind, a donation in exchange for money. It's going to be a lot cheaper for me. If I'm a computer company and I make computers and instead of giving $1 million in cash, if I give them $1 million in product, my true cost of that is probably less than $500,000. Also, they're able to use my machines and my equipment, so I am able to get some added benefits of this experience economy, as well as perhaps some advertising, some promotion with other types of sponsors as we're going through this. So it's very vital from a sponsor perspective. If I can get my product involved there, I definitely want to be a part of it. The Olympic Partnership, certainly in the 1984 Summer Games in Los Angeles, really drove this idea of worldwide marketing from the Olympic perspective, and certainly has grown to all sorts of media sponsors and mega event sponsors. So right now, top sponsors can contribute between $60 and $100 million. They get a Summer Games and they get a following Winter Games. And for that, you get a lot of access. You get the intellectual property. You get the exclusive domain of using the Olympics and the rings. You get hospitality. You get a lot of benefits that need to be activated moving forward. It does get confusing at not only an Olympic, but also other types of sports with all the different types of sponsors. So a TOP sponsor with the IOC, you are a sponsor and you get exclusivity through the national organizing committees. The organizations that host the event can sell sponsors. National teams like Team USA or USA Basketball have sponsors. International Federation with the FIFA having sponsors. So there's multiple levels of sponsorships that can have conflicts and competition in there. Not different than what we'd look at maybe at Major League Baseball, that you have MLB sponsors, you have sponsors of individual teams, you have stadium sponsors, you have sponsors of players who give endorsements for different products. So it does get confusing. The more sponsors that you have in there, much more areas that you're looking at increasing this potential conflict of interest or confusion that would be associated with different sponsors being in the same workspace. Although we do see sponsorship growing at a bigger level, at times at a grassroots level, it's getting more difficult to get some of the funds. Maybe a generation ago, McDonald's may be more inclined to do some grassroots events locally, as opposed to now funneling a lot of money through the national organization to sponsor mega events. Also, one thing that smaller organizations don't get are a lot of the metrics that we'll look at the end, where smaller events tend to call the association of sponsorship, but it's not really a sponsorship. It's more of a donation. Unless the property's driving some meaningful benefits back to that organization, it really is just a friendly gift at a grassroots level. Um, being some PA announcements or being put in the back of a t-shirt isn't enough. When you do a sponsorship these days, you want to be able to, at the end of all this, show an increase in sales. You want to move the needle somehow. You want to get people more familiar with your brand. You want to drive an experience. You want to increase your brand awareness and your personality, your image, and all these other things that go in there. But at the end of the day, we want to show an uptick in sales and traffic that we can. If it's a smaller event, maybe instead of having an area where you sign up and you get your special cards or your game information or your schedule, maybe we hold that at the local pizza place that is able to sponsor it for us. Or maybe we have a small Division III college and we have that pizza place again being our sponsor, but we run a promotion with them that if we win a game, you get a free soda with a ticket if you buy a slice of pizza. Somehow let's figure out how we're driving revenue for our sponsorship. That's something that the property needs to do. The property needs to figure out how do we increase traffic and increase, because if the sponsor's not getting an uptake in sales, they're not going to come around and sponsor anymore or give you that donation. For sponsor goals, you have that right to associate. What am I looking to do when I'm giving that money? I want to perhaps transfer an image of the sponsor to the other. A lot of people spend a lot of money on the Olympics for this idea of kind of the world-class athletic competition, sport for sport's sake. We kind of push off a lot of the maybe negative bribery and corruption issues that surround international sport and the IOC for this idea of a value transfer. We may have advertising goals that part of the sponsorship may put our name and our logo on promotional advertising, television, radio, thanking, all this stuff. We see this tremendously done through NASCAR. Every interview that we see with an auto racer, the first thing to do when they win, thank you very much to, blank sponsor the car, and I couldn't have done it without, blank, blank, and blank, and just naming these sponsors over and over and over, getting them more promotion, thus allowing that sponsor to get even more benefits. We can look at it through a public relations to increase favorable attitudes. Maybe we're sponsoring a sporting event. Certainly after the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, you saw British Petroleum and other oil companies sponsoring a lot of events in the Gulf region. Showing that not only are we trying to clean this up, but trying to improve our brand image, trying to be a part of the community a little bit better. We can look at sponsor and property goals, sponsor goals, image creation and improvement, creating business relationships. Every property should be looking at all the other sponsors and figuring out a way that I can increase my business. Maybe I have IBM and Coca-Cola as sponsors of my event. I want to get those two people together. I would love for IBM to have a Coca-Cola machine in every single office they have around the world. I want Coca-Cola to be contracted with IBM for every computer system that they have. And I want me as a property to be the group to have facilitated that. We can create media relationships, employee relationships. Our sponsorship may have increase of tickets. I know when we had worked in Milwaukee at GMR Marketing, part of our sponsorship and part of our association with the Bucks, the Brewers, the Packers were game tickets. And I was able to walk down and employees were able to walk into our Gary Reynolds' office and say, hey, I've had this employee, work hard and work late every single night for the past 2 weeks. Is this game coming up? Are the tickets free? If they're free, here are 4 tickets, 5th row behind home plate, and reward your employees. Say thank you for working those extra hours. That kind of stuff, those intrinsic rewards really help, employees feel appreciated. community relationships. Can we increase sales? If I'm Pepsi-Cola and I'm looking to sponsor a Major League Baseball team, I'm not necessarily looking for signage and increase my image because I get that in other places. I want to sell. If my sponsorship's $1 million, I want to sell over $1 million worth of soda. And I can do that through this sponsorship. I can position my brand. I can develop additional business through my suite. Maybe I'm running a suite at a baseball game and I can bring in additional people. Maybe Procter & Gamble, when you're looking at the Thank You Mom promotion they had with the Olympics, and they had hospitality associated with it. So I can look at Procter & Gamble bringing in 500 of their biggest salespeople and their biggest retailers of their products around the world. I'm going to bring them to an Olympics. I'm going to post them up. I'm going to bring some athletes in there. I'm going to take them to different events. I'm going to show them that we appreciate them, and we're going to try to dig in and find new business for them. Raise awareness, responsibility, targeting new segments. Maybe I want to go after a female market. Maybe I want to go after a market in China or Brazil, and sport will allow me to get into those markets in a way that would be difficult otherwise. From a property goal, I want funds. I want money. I want either cash or value in kind to budget relieve what I'm doing. I can obtain services. I can raise awareness for myself. I can position myself. If you had an event that had Coca-Cola and IBM and ESPN as your sponsors, that's going to say something about your event as opposed to an event equally as good, equally as competitive that has Dodds sneakers and Seyfried soda and other brands that may be very good and be just not as large or as widely known. It says something a little bit less about that in terms of a branding for the event, raising credibility, image creation. So the brands that a property gets to sponsor their group, more than just cash and value in kind, can actually show me some brand image within themselves. Here's a survey that was taken that has sports sponsorship objectives, comparing a general or more of a male-dominated sport versus a female sport. And we see a lot of difference in this in some areas. Striking, the women has a very high percentage of enhancing the company image and a lower increase in sales and market awareness. That may suggest that people aren't looking to leverage a women's event as much as they would a general sport or a more male-dominated sport, which is absurd. Look at the WNBA in terms of delivering a female market. It's perhaps the best sports sponsorship opportunity out there. MLS going for a younger audience might be the best value that's out there. So when you look and compare and contrasting different sponsorships to be, you want to focus on what are my objectives? What is my target audience? The reason why we're looking at this sponsorship idea so late in the semester is the fact that we have to go through that strategy first, that STP next. So we want to find out who and what we're going after before we figure out how we're going to do that. We don't want to marry ourselves to, I want to be a sponsor of Major League Baseball and then figure out how to use it. I want to know what I need to do and then evaluate, is Major League Baseball the best property for me? Advantages of sports sponsorships. We've looked all semester long. Consumers identify themselves personally with the sport and create brand loyalty. We see this in a number of particular sports where if you sponsor that team or that player or your consumer, your fan is going to purchase that specifically. I think of all the fans that Michael Jordan created that then wore Nike and now can go the other direction, that people have grown up under a Nike umbrella and now they're going to like a player because they're in the Nike stable house. Sport evokes personal attachment, and sponsor can be linked with excitement, energy, and emotion. You want your images out there when things are happening and people are in a good mood. We can deliver a clear message. It's universal. We can get into different target audiences, different markets that we've never been to before. It has a high level of media exposure. Think of how often the Citgo sign outside of Fenway Park has been on replays and on television, for the last 2 generations. Disadvantages: lack of control over the media coverage. A lot of sponsors, a lot of media are reluctant to give the name of sponsors. Maybe you have a naming rights of a stadium, and you don't actually, maybe Dodge Soda is the title sponsor of an NFL franchise stadium. And if Dodge Soda doesn't advertise on ESPN, then ESPN isn't going to mention that they play in Dodge Soda Stadium. They may say the game is here in New York without mentioning my sponsor name. A non-performing team or athlete, that has an influence on what the public thinks of the sponsor. One reason why Nike has been very successful using endorsements is they endorse a lot of athletes. Certainly at a very smaller, younger age. We see the players, Jordan, Durant, and some of these other players that have been dominating and great players. We forget about the 5 or 6 other people every year that they sign that don't produce and don't become all-stars or Hall of Fame material. And ambush marketing that we'll look into, this idea that there may be ways for non-sponsors to try to trade in and get some of these advantages and these benefits when they don't pay for it. When we design this property and sponsorship relationship, we want it to be a win-win. We want the sponsor benefits and the property benefits to be an exchange. So we want to organize strategic meetings so that and here it says sponsory. I like property a little bit better to me. So sponsor and property to reach those goals. If I'm selling you a suite each year and the sponsor doesn't reach their sales goal or doesn't reach their marketing goals, they're going to take that and they're going to go to a different property, and I'm going to lose that revenue source. So I want to make sure that I am able to help the sponsor reach their benefits. And a sponsor needs to do the same thing from a property perspective. I have a vested interest with number of tickets sold and number of people going to this event. So if I have real estate perhaps on my can of Dodge Soda and I'm a sponsor of an NFL team, I can put the schedule on there. I can tell people how to buy tickets so that now every person who buys a can of soda, they're able to see what the association is, the sponsorship is, and how to buy tickets, which then in turn makes my sponsorship even more valuable. When I want to activate a sponsorship, when I look at this idea, I'm not just spending $60 million on a top sponsorship with the IOC. I need to activate it. I need to spend typically 3 times or more that cost of the sponsorship to promote it, to activate it, to have it become to real. So when Procter & Gamble signs their Olympic sponsorship and spends $60 million with the IOC, they need to spend about $180 million to tell people about it. If I get some tickets and I get the right to use the rings, I need then to activate that sponsorship and make it more effective, to leverage it. So if I have tickets, I need to spend money on hospitality. I need to fly people in. I need to show them a good time. If I have this Olympic sponsorship, I want to use it and tell people about it through my advertising, through my couponing, my promotional mix elements, that sort of thing. One thing that may be appropriate is that money may be already allocated. Procter & Gamble has a huge advertising budget that they're going to spend $1 billion during the next year advertising all of their brands. If I have this Olympic sponsorship, all I have to do is go down there and work with them, and you're spending $1 billion. How about 200 million of that you promote this association that we have? So we create a theme around our sponsorship. I can do some sales promotions. I can do a win tickets. I can have, a contest or sweepstakes that people can do this. I can sell premiums, hand things out either at a retail place or at the event itself and do something that reinforces the sponsorship association. I can do retail visits, or as we looked at show car visits, a number of NASCAR sponsors will have very specific areas where in their sponsorship I can create a life-size automobile just like the ones that people are driving, where you start the engine and it's really loud and you see, hey, it's fiberglass, it's not really steel, and take that to different retail stores and promote it and advertise it, and people will come out to look at that car. So if I spent a lot of money on a sponsorship, here's a way I can drive traffic back to my retail establishment because people are interested in this stuff. I can do that both customer marketing and consumer marketing. Customer marketing, if you've bought 50 cases from me last year of Dodge Soda, you buy 100 cases from me this year, I'm going to bring you to a game. I can do advertising. I can do hospitality. I can do mobile marketing. I can look at all these different areas that I need to activate my sponsorship. I need to use those other marketing mix elements to really create this idea. Here's an abstract of a paper that a co-author and I wrote. Sponsorships are marketing assets that can be leveraged to increase the effectiveness of marketing promotions. We're assets. They need to be leveraged to increase the effectiveness of it. Kind of makes sense. Conversely, the activation of a marketing promotions is to increase the overall sponsorship awareness and positive consumer attitudes and behaviors. These ideas are not opposing forces, but are mutually supportive. In other words, if I offer a coupon that shows my Olympic sponsorship, not only does that coupon activate that sponsorship, but I may make that coupon more effective. I'm telling more people about it that may not be sport fans that get the coupon and they say, wow, look at that. They're an Olympic sponsorship. They're have this association. That's kind of cool. So I'm getting a better response and more awareness of my sponsorship. But I also may make that coupon more effective by maybe 8% of the people ordinarily clip the coupon and will submit it. Maybe this association gets 4 or 5 more percentage points. So I get 12% now, cutting that coupon. So I can increase sales. I can make that more effective. NASCARs are famous for their sponsorships. NASCAR fans are famous for their sponsorships, favorable attitudes and loyalty towards sponsors. However, many NASCAR sponsorships are not optimally used to create this type of strong connection. Most NASCAR sponsorships need marketing promotions to generate awareness of the sponsorship. Through our studies, we argued that NASCAR sponsorships generate incremental participation in NASCAR-linked sales promotions. NASCAR-linked sales promotions increase favorability towards NASCAR sponsorships, and NASCAR-linked sales promotions drive sales for sponsors. Just what I said. So through our study, we showed that sales promotions that are NASCAR themed for NASCAR sponsors not only generate more awareness of the NASCAR sponsorship, but also generate incremental effectiveness and more people take advantage of their sales promotions. Maybe you buy 12 packs of Dodge Soda and you get a free Dodge Soda NASCAR hat, something that's very specific in an area. That more people will do that to get that hat because it's a NASCAR hat. Implications of the study show that NASCAR sponsorships can be leveraged effectively with sales promotions, and sales promotions can activate NASCAR sponsorships by increasing favorable attitudes towards sponsorships. So a sponsorship on its own is not enough. We need to activate it. We need to see where these different elements leverage each other, where they become more powerful. Second abstract. Mobile marketing displays engage the consumer. This sponsorship activation tactic is highly visible at NASCAR races. Some common elements at NASCAR races include show cars, or those cars that are being driven out there, interactive race simulators, video games, race suits and equipment displays, autograph signings, other types of things. Authors of our study argue that by using mobile marketing effectively as a sponsorship activation tactic, the race fans derive more enjoyment from the race experience. This increased enjoyment leads to higher product sales for the sponsor, meaning if I'm going to go to a NASCAR race and before the race I'm able to go to one of these mobile marketing displays, I'm going to be engaged in them, I'm going to have a lot of fun, I'm going to have more fun and more enjoyment from the total race experience. Implications of the study show that the sponsors in other sports should use mobile marketing to increase the fan satisfaction of the game experience in order to increase their product sales. So if I sponsor a college football team, I should do a mobile marketing. I should go there before and after the game and engage the consumer. Do a football toss, have autograph signings, do something fun. People are going to like my brand better and they're going to buy my brand more. Additionally, event managers should support mobile marketing as a sponsorship activation tactic with the intention of increasing fan enjoyment and improving attendance. In other words, if I am running a team, I want all my sponsors to have mobile marketing displays, because if a fan comes early and they're able to have a lot of fun because they're throwing the ball around and go to the bouncy house, getting some autographs, and we go out there and we have the game and the team loses, and they still said, you know what, I still had a lot of fun, I'm going to go to more games. What other corporate departments can activate on a sports sponsorship? Finance, human resources, advertising, R&D. We can look at a very broad range of different groups. For instance, human resources. We talked earlier about employees and using the game tickets. That going through and hiring people is very difficult and very costly. If I find people that I like and people that work very hard and they're really great people, I want to hold on to them. And one way to show them that I want to hold on to them is show appreciation for them. One way to show appreciation for them is to do things like this. So if I have a sponsorship and I can include people in that, I should do that. So I measure the sponsorship effectiveness. What kind of metrics do I use? I want to depend on my goals and more specifically my SMART objectives. I can create awareness. I can create direct sales. When I look at the perception of sponsors, we're looking kind of at two main areas. One is a function-based similarity. If the products are actually used in the event, you see Wilson footballs and Spalding baseballs and Nike shoes that are used in the event. You have a function-based similarity. There's a high value, high credibility. Use the product in the event. An image-based similarity is a compatibility between the images, Rolex and Wimbledon. You don't use Rolex timepieces in any aspect of tennis, but both of those images, Wimbledon with the premier tennis and Rolex with their high quality, you have an image-based similarity connection with that. So we look at timing for metrics, different types of things that we can do. Property, usually short-term property. If I'm measuring my effectiveness, did I get a lot of money? Did I raise cash? Did I get value in kind? I'm going to know how I did relatively right before the event starts. For a sponsor, my metrics, if it's awareness and brand association, I have to do a survey before the event. I need to do a survey after event. And if I'm measuring on sales, this may be a part of a lag period where I'm not going to know was it actually effective or not until much later. So we look at what type of property we want from a sponsor perspective. I need to know if I'm looking to get the most out of my property, my sponsorship, if I'm going to spend this amount of money and I want to make sure it's the most effective, the biggest impact on it would be the choice of the property itself and things that I need to think about when I choose that property. Cost. If I'm a small town pizzeria, I'm not going to be able to sponsor an Olympic. I need to evaluate cost of the sponsorship as well as cost of activation. I can look at a market. Do I need to go global, which is Olympics, FIFA, Rugby World Cup, international, which would be 3 or 4 different nations, maybe a winter group or the Lacrosse World Championships. Regional could be, from a UNESCO perspective, more than one state. It's not just in one area. Northeast region, maybe you're looking at Little League Baseball in Southeast and Mountain. Or regional could be more of an college football conferences that goes through multiple states. And local, which market do I need? Which market is my target audience? What benefits do I need? Which ones do I absolutely need and which ones are extra? If they're extra, can I take advantage of them, or do I want to negotiate them back to decrease the cost? By understanding where people go for their sport entertainment, potential sponsors can be more effective in directing their sponsorship strategies. If I know my target audience likes football, I want to be in football. If I know my target audience likes ice skating, I want to be in ice skating. By understanding why people consume sport, my creative can match that motivation. Maybe people like going to baseball. My target audience is going there for a family atmosphere. So my creative elements need to show families together. Maybe my target audience goes skiing, downhill skiing, because it's risky and they want to have fun, and I need my creative to show a risky aspect of skiing. Some black diamonds, double black diamonds, and people jumping. If I know where people go to get their entertainment and I know why people go there, I can be there when they look for it, and I can frame my creative in the same language that they want to hear it in, and not language in terms of English, French, or Spanish, language in terms of what their motivation is. See how it all comes together?